Hi, welcome to Building SaaS with Python and Django. My name is Matt Lehman, and this stream builds Django apps. That's what we work on. I'm going to continue on my homeschool application tonight and be working on a project to add ordering to an existing model. So that's what is in store for the evening. If you like what you see, you're welcome to comment, subscribe, follow, do whatever makes sense, whether you're watching this on YouTube or catching it from Twitch Live. I do want to take a moment to thank my patrons on Patreon. If you would like to support me in that same way, you can do so at patreon.com/mblayman. But I want to shout out to Rupert, Andrew, Dragos, Patrick, Eric, Fred, Philip, Shivan, Monty, and Miguel. Thank you all for your contributions. I really appreciate it. So yeah, let's get into the project today. And we're going to take a break from the PDF reporting that I've been doing. So if you tuned in on previous streams, you'll have seen me putting together a zip file archive of PDF reports that kind of summarize a end of year report for a student and in a school year. And I had a customer contact me this week and have some good questions and some good feedback about work that she needs done to her school. This is not my spouse, it's a different customer. And I want to try and respond as quickly as I can to those to really delight the customer. And so one of those requests is pretty reasonable, and it's all about ordering grade levels. So this is a homeschool application if you've never seen the stream before, and it's all about building a homeschool app that a family can use. It's designed for families, not for classrooms or co-ops or anything like that. For Hydramike 420, welcome. For the PDF generation, I've been using WheezyPrint, so we're not going to get too much into that today, but next week we'll probably get back to that. So the project that we're trying to take on today is that in the homeschool application, you can have multiple grade levels for a school year, which makes sense that you have them for different students who are going to be in your school. And for my family personally, there's only 2 students. I have 2 children, so the grade level ordering is not super important. You're kind of seeing one or the other, and my wife sort of picks the one that she wanted first and one that she wants second. But this particular customer has a lot more children than 2, and she wants the ability to sort the grade levels by a different order. Oh, you're welcome, Hydramike. And so the capability that she has requested is, hey, in the UI, could you make it possible for the grade levels to sort for the school year, which I think is a totally reasonable request. So that's what we're going to work on. Now the challenge is the grade level model that is within the code of the project was not designed to be orderable. So I have a library that supports ordering. It's a Django ordered model, I think is the name of the package. But we have to introduce that to the grade level, and that's going to be the challenge. We have to make sure that the data and the migration work correctly and do all of that, and then expose the user interface. So it's really a 2-step process of making a data change to the existing model and doing a migration, and then getting that out there, and then doing the code that's going to support that. So kind of a 2-step process. So that's the plan, and that's what we'll be working through. If you have any questions, you're free to ask me anything about Python, Django, or web development. That's what I'm here for. So it's like not just making progress on this particular project, but is to answer your questions as they come up. But let's get started with the code and look at some of the models. Actually, maybe before we get too far into it, we can see the model diagram to make it really clear. I am totally on the wrong tab. So let's go to where actually the homeschool stuff is. And let's take a look at the model diagram. And this is something that we've used in the past to kind of orient ourselves to what's going on. And let's get this into the viewport here and resize it so you can actually have a fighting chance of seeing it. Oh, come on now. There we go. So where we need to be editing is this model right here. So a user is connected to a school, and a user's school has different school years. So that makes sense if you've ever gone to school, which hopefully most of you have. And then the school year model has a one-to-many relationship with this grade level. And you can see that it is not ordered at all. Like here's an example over here of a model that is ordered, kind of inherits from this ordered model class. And so this is kind of where we need to change this so that the there will be a new inheritance arrow that points over here on the grade level. And so there are some challenges with this that we can look at when we get into the Django ordered model package. So let's go over there and I need to look at the documentation. It's been a while since I've looked at it. And it should be at Django ordered model. And the docs, if I recall, are right in the README rather than on a separate page. So it's all here. And what I think it does, you can read about all these methods. It's a really cool tool for adding ordering and adding some sort of helpers along the way to make it easier to work with that. But there are a couple of things that we need to factor in as well that are unique to this situation. And one of them is that there will be an ordering attribute that will get added to the model, and I believe it's going to give a private name of _order or something like that. We don't really care about that field so much. We do care about the data that it's going to hold, and I don't recall what will happen when you add it to an existing model, so we'll have to play with that since I don't have a separate development environment where on Heroku where this is done. So I need to make sure that I need to be really confident about it working locally before I push it up and mess up. I don't want to mess up data with my actual customers. The other important element is that the ordering is going to matter contextually. And it's going to matter relative to the school year. So back in that diagram, there's a one-to-many relationship between a school year and the grade level. If you don't use this particular field, this order with respect to field, then what's going to happen is it's going to globally care about ordering. And that doesn't make any sense for my customers because my wife's grade levels that she defines in her school years has nothing to do with the grade levels of this other customer that I'm trying to make this work for. So as we're going through this process of adding ordering, we need to add this extra order with respect to and make it relative to a school year, because that's going to be the data granularity that it needs to match and be orderable. And I think under the covers what this project does is that when it's doing the queries, it will factor in the relationship that is related to. In this case, we'll do relative to the school year. So that's something that we'll have to set. So I think those are the key things that we have to go through. And the actual setup of the process is not too hard. It's setting and changing it from a model to an ordered model. So mechanically, this actually shouldn't be too bad in terms of what we need to do. But it's the details that are going to be, that we'll have to pay very careful attention to since this is, again, an existing model. So let's look at the code. And I left this stuff up from last week, or from some other work I was doing. So let's go to where are grade levels. I think they're in the schools app. So we're going to go to schools model, and we'll look for grade level. Here it is. And I wonder is anything ordered in here already? No. So I know that the courses models has some ordered stuff. And so we need to get at least this import in here. So let's come up to the top and drop in a new import. And then we're going to go to the grade level again. And we're going to change this from a model to an ordered model. There's also some guidance in the documentation about changing the manager if you have one, I believe. I'm pretty sure it's somewhere in here, but we don't explicitly define a separate manager. Yeah, here it is. So you can define, if you have a custom manager associated with your model, you have to do some additional work to set the manager there, which isn't our case here. So I think we can get away with just leaving that alone. And you can see there's some extra guidance about using a custom ordering field if we already had a value that we cared about, but we don't need to do that. So what we're going to use, is it listed here? Yeah, it's going to be order by default, I believe. And it should have all the actual package will do all of the addition of this field. So that's actually going to be the interesting part as we try to navigate this problem. The other bit that is actually, now that I'm reading documentation, is a good reminder. We might need to do some stuff to make it possible to sort in the admin or do something like that. If I wanted to expose that functionality and make my admin more useful. I don't know that I will, because this is really something that is a user interface feature. I don't know that I need that control in the admin, so we may kick the can on this particular part. I was trying to look through here to see if there's any information about what do you do with an existing model, but I don't see it. So anyway, so we have our first step of creating an ordered model. And so that's kind of the minimal change right there. And so we can get rid of the course models. And I think maybe the next step to do is to run the make migrations command. And I have a feeling it's going to prompt us probably to give a default value to this new field. Okay, so it says you're trying to add a non-nullable field, order, to grade level without a default. We can't do that. The database needs something to populate existing rows, so this all makes sense. Please select a fix. So provide a one-off default value now. This will be set on all existing rows with a null value for this column. Quit. Let me add a default. So this is where I'm a little uncertain of what the right action is. I think what could be done is to set it to something like 0. So the ordering is all 0. But the problem is I don't know what the behavior will be if the value is the same for every field. So the other option, one other option, there's plenty of options to consider, would be to set a default value, but then also modify the migration that adds this to actually run some Python code that will go through each existing grade level and set the order perhaps to something like the primary key, which logically would match up with how people added things. Like there's chronologically, you can't add grade level with a primary key of 1 or of 2 before you add a grade level with a primary key of 1. So we would get the order that matches the expectation of what the user added to start, which I think is probably the safe thing to do. But it kind of has to be a two-step process. There's no way that I can trivially in Django's migration system say, okay, the default at this little prompt is going to be whatever the PK is. That's not how this works. So I think I want to say 1. And then I think I need to say 0. And the reason I'm uncertain of if I can leave it at 0 is I don't know the behavior of if we do a query, the effect of the ordered model is it by default adds an order by operation to every query that you do for this model. So there's a performance hit that we need to be cognizant of. But this is like a really small table. It's a small number of grade levels, so there's not going to be a factor here. If I had a table with millions and millions of rows, I might be more concerned with adding order by stuff like this. But it shouldn't be a problem with this small table. But setting the performance problem aside, if you have an order by clause and all of the values are the same for the field that is getting ordered, I don't know how Postgres, which is the database that I'm using, will behave in that scenario. I don't know if it will be random or if it will be indeterminate or yeah, I really don't have an inkling of what that would do. And I'm sure we could look up the details in Postgres of what that behavior is if the order by is all the same, but that just sounds like more work than we want to do when ultimately I know that I want to add the ordering anyway to add the clarity there. Okay, so trying to think of also the ordering should be, if we want to make it match up with what the user originally supplied, we want to do low to high, right? Which I think is going to be the default anyway, so that should be okay. All right, so let's see. We've got our migration, and I'm trying to decide, do we put the migration to update the ordering stuff in a separate migration or the same migration? So there's a way to do this so that when the application is deployed, before it's actually released, all of the data will be updated on the site. And that is at the migration time. It's called a data migration when you do that, as opposed to a schema migration, which is what the actual field edition is. And when you're doing migrations, actually, let's take a look at the one we just created. And it's in the schools app, migrations. It's this 005 here. And you can see that there is a list of operations that happen. One of the operations that you can do is to do a run Python operation. And that is where you can run some code. So as I was saying, like, I am uncertain if we want to do a run Python operation right here. I can give you an example of what this will look like. So it looks like I have, and I think I've done something similar to this before. So here's an example where I wanted to populate something, and then I set it to be it was a nullable initially, and then I set it to run some Python to actually fill in all the values, and then I changed the field afterwards to lock it down, basically, with this setting it so no longer nullable. Now our situation is a little different from that, but that's sort of what's going on here. So let's go actually, before we do that, let's rename this file because it's not a very meaningful migration name. So let's change it from 005 auto to grade level order. Okay. And we've got the ordering there. So I think what I want to do is add this migration, which is we need to add migrations, run Python, and it takes a callable as its first thing, which we haven't defined yet. Set order to ID. And then the reverse direction. So if you want to undo this migration, what do you need to do in the reverse? In this case, the reverse of this whole migration would be to drop the ordering field. So there's nothing to do here. So we can say, use a shortcut that's available, which is to call migrations, run Python, has a function that's added there that follows the schema the type signature, and that's using this no-op function. So we've got that, and let's bring up this other migration for a minute because it has the interface that we want. In fact, it's got a couple things that I want to steal from it. Let's go back to the other one. And up here, we need to add our new callable. Callable takes two parameters, and those parameters are an apps directory, or a registry, I should say, and then a schema editor. And we don't need the schema editor this time, but we need to get the apps to pull the model. So let's go through here. So let's see, set order to ID is the thing that we need to name this. And then we need to do grade level, and we need to do schools grade level. And we'll just have that be enough for the moment. All right, so let's pause and talk about what is this thing, what is this business with this get model? Why am I not just importing the model from the application? And this has to do with the Django migration system. So think about what it is you're importing. When you import a model, by definition, you're importing whatever is available in that Python file at that time. So you over time, you have to think about this over time. This is where it kind of is a little bit brain bending. And if you were to import this directly, then this old migration at some point in the future may not continue to run, because maybe you make some changes to your model and you add fields that, or you remove fields that used to be there. So what this does with this get model is Django's migration system realizes that, hey, models evolve over time and they change. They have additions, removals, deletion, changes, whatever. And so you need a sort of a model snapshot of what was the state of the model at the time that this migration needed to run. So this apps registry and this get model thing will know the timeline of the models and be able to give you a grade level that looks like what needs to happen when this migration needs to be applied. It's a little confusing, I admit. And there's some other limitations here, like if I tried to use some of the methods on my grade level model, they won't exist on this object. This object only has the actual model attributes that were available at the time. So the grade level here is a little different from the grade level that I might actually be using in my regular code. But I know the state of it right now, and that's the important part. And so we want to go through each grade level, and we want to say for grade level in grade level dot objects dot all, so iterate through every grade level. And I want to say that the grade level order, that's the new field that we're adding, is going to be equal to the grade level ID. And then I want to make sure that I save the grade level at that moment. Still getting used to a new keyboard, y'all. Sorry if you're like seeing me type some weird stuff, because I am. I'm not very good with this keyboard yet. There's something slightly off about the spacing that my fingers are still getting acclimated to. So now what our migration is saying is, hey, you're going to run the Python after you've set the value to 0, and then you're going to set each ID appropriately and make sure that the ordering will be there in the future. This, I believe, should work. We're going to find out if there's maybe some transaction stuff that I'm forgetting about, but I don't see any reason why this won't work. And then we can go in and kind of poke at the data model and see if we got the order right. And then I think it's important at that point to go ahead and deploy, because the deployment of this change is, you want to like lead with model changes first so that it is then safe to do a deployment after that. And let's camp on that idea for a second. So if we don't do this, what happens? If I were to make this model change and add it, and then start using the code that needs it, then there's going to be a problem. And that problem is there's a period of time where the code involved will try and rely on this order field, but it won't exist in the database yet. So if the application goes live before that database schema has happened, then it's possible for the Django app, the Django ORM, to issue this query that uses the order field, and it will throw up some exception saying like, hey, that column doesn't exist. So you need to make the model change first and get that out, and then follow on with the change that you actually want to make. So I mean, this is kind of like a behind the scenes change first to prepare the system. And then we'll be able to actually use that feature and expose it as some user interface. Hopefully that makes sense. So let's try and run it locally, see if I manage to get this right. I'm not writing any unit tests for this. There's enough test data here, and then we can add and drop the column if I got something wrong. But I think this should work. Okay. So I apparently did some Django Stripe upgrades in the interim as well, so there were a couple other migrations that were missing in my local database. But it seemed to apply okay. Now next, I want to confirm that we actually got that order field right. So let's start the server and let's go take a look and see if things are looking good. I want to go to the Django Admin, which I call Office for this application. I want to go to the Schools app and look at the grade levels. And this is something we should be able to spot check. These are in order. It's hard to tell, but they're in order by their primary key, even though I'm using a HashID as the primary key. So we've got, this is the grade level, bunch of stuff. Oh, I've got some custom stuff set here. Oh, rats. Let's go into the model. All right, we are going to make a little change to the admin so we can see it. Well, ordered. Why can I not see that? There's another ordering here. This is where it's getting a little confusing. So pay no attention. This is ordering for different stuff for the courses. That's something else though. Don't worry about that. You know what? Forget it. We don't need to like do that through the Django admin. We can just as easily do it through the shell. So we'll say from homeschool schools models import the grade level and for G in grade level objects all. And I want to print two things. I want to print the GID, although it'll be a hash ID probably. We won't be able to tell. I want to also print the order. Okay, so this is not a clear way to see this because I'm using this HashID library that is kind of changing my PKs. So this is actually a hashed value of 1 with a salt and a couple of different salt values to create something that is hashable and referenceable in my application. So we can't really see the IDs to compare, but at least we can see that the order is monotonically increasing in the ways that we would expect. This is I'm sure the oldest, and it goes just right down the line. So I'm pretty convinced that that we made the right change with this migration. Let's add that, and then let's run the coverage tool. Let's run the tests and make sure that everything is good before I deploy here. We want to deploy and make sure that it goes up safely before we move on to the next step. And I don't see any reason why this would fail. Now I do have a question for myself before we move on. And that question is, what happens when another grade level is made? I presume that the order will be incremented. Oh, there's also, I realize now that there's something that we totally missed. I remember saying we needed to do the with respect to thing, but we totally didn't. Let's go back to the schools app. And I don't know if this is going to affect the model or not, so or in the migration or not. So let's try it out. That was an oversight on my part, which would cause great pain and suffering. So not great pain, but it would be an annoyance. So we want to do order with respect to, and I want to do order with respect to school year. Order with respect to school year. Okay. Hopefully that does. I'm going to try running the make migrations command again. Hopefully that does not trigger a new migration. If so, we'll have to go. Yeah, good. Otherwise, I would have had to combine stuff, and I didn't want to do that. So we've got our migration, we've got the ordered field, we've got the order with respect to. Let's try running the test again one more time to make sure that changing that one little thing did not cause any problems. I don't want to tank the application just because I'm being a little careless, especially when you're dealing with data migrations. It's best to play a little safe, in my opinion. Okay, it's looking good. So we've got that added. We can commit this. Oh, no, stop. I said I wanted to see what happened when I added a new grade level. Let's do that. Go back to the site. And I'm going to go into the school year. We'll call it the test ordering grade level. And that's got, this is the HashID. We'll copy that. Come back to the shell. This time I'm going to use shell plus to go ahead and load all the models in so I don't have to import grade level again. Should have done that last time. And we'll say the grade, so G is equal to the grade level objects get with ID of HashID that we just copied. And, oops, not object. Go Foddy. Hi, how are you? Welcome. Working on some ordering stuff on this project, homeschool application. Thanks for joining in. We're about to deploy a database migration change and then work on the UI to help support this change. But before I actually commit, I was going to do one last check here. Oh, interesting. The order here was 19. I am good, thank you. Appreciate that comment. Why was that 19? Well, now I'm confused because we had 20. Oh, cool. Are you talking about the article series, or are you talking about this stream series? Or I'm curious what you mean there, because I do a couple different things. I also have a podcast, so I don't know which one you're referring to exactly. Maybe all of them. I don't know. Okay. Got it. Gotcha. Well, welcome. Hope I offer you some knowledge that you didn't know when it comes to Django. I'm wondering if the ordering that we're seeing here has to do with the fact that maybe the school year, maybe like we added the order with respect to field, right? So it's order with respect to a certain school year. So what is this grade level? Maybe this grade level has an order number of 18. That's all I can think of for why it would not be 21 instead of the 19 that it showed. Whoa, 3 videos in a day, man. That's impressive. Some of these streams are pretty long. So good on you. I apologize if you're not actually a man. I have no idea who you are, and I don't care either way. So don't mean to offend. All right. So now we've got our it's not. Hold on. I'm going to look at the previous grade level. So I want to make sure that this seems like awfully pedantic, but I like, well, maybe that's just my nature, but I like to have a solid understanding of what the heck happened. And we saw a 19. when I expected a 21, and so now we're reasoning backwards, and I'm thinking that the reason it saw a 19 is that this is actually an 18. That's my hypothesis. Oh, good, it is. Okay. So I think we can move on to actually commit this. And so there's all my pre-commit stuff, tells me all the code is well formatted. And we'll say add what? Add ordering to the grade level. And actually, before I commit that, this is for number 558. Okay. So let's go ahead and deploy this. Deploying live. It's not as exciting as it might seem. We get to watch some stuff scroll by, and you can see all the other bits that go into my application. So what you're seeing at the start here, I'll just talk through it as it's going through because I don't really have anything to do in the interim, is it is building the Tailwind CSS. So I use Tailwind CSS, which is a great little library, but you have to compile down the CSS to the stuff that you actually need. So that was the first step. So the Heroku is divided up into different build packs, and those build packs roughly correspond to like different languages or tools that you're trying to use. So my first build pack was Node.js, and that was for building the Tailwind part, because that's how Tailwind is built, with some JavaScript code. This second build pack that you're seeing is the Heroku build pack. Actually, we might have even moved on from the Heroku build pack already, because it goes so quickly. The Heroku build pack builds the blog that I have with the application, and it's a product blog that tells people like, here's the new stuff that's coming out. So when I want to announce features or changes, just to kind of let people know, hey, I'm still actually working on this thing, that's where I'm using Hugo, which is a static site generator. So this build pack is based on Hugo is a Go application, so it like downloads the Go binary and then builds the site and leaves it in the output of the thing that's going to be deployed. Then we move on to, you can see that like this is the end of where the Hugo build pack is. Then it moves on to Python. So it says, all right, finishes with the Hugo build pack and it moves on to the Python build pack. And it detects that I have a Python app. It finds my the runtime of which version of Python that I'm going to run, installs all the packages. I've got some scripts that will actually do some compression here, which I don't really feel like talking too much about. I also have building of documentation, and so that's kind of what's in this build output. And cool. I was hoping to talk long enough to get through the end of this, and then you can see what happens is we get to the end, and it finishes by building, I believe Heroku calls it a slug, I think, is like the name of the kind of the artifact that they move around. So my thing that I'm deploying is 157 megabytes that get moved around. In my proc file, I have a release command, and that release command is something that is intended to run before this new version is deployed live. So that allows me to run my migration and make sure that my data is in place, and then it flips over and makes the new version of the app live on the site. And so that's that process. So now what this tells me is I have a model that, an application that if I was to go on there, I'm sure I would find grade levels that have orders that match the IDs that we just did. So I think we're well positioned to move on to the next thing. So that was actually bullet 1 here. And we did the deploy in the middle. I didn't really call that task out, but that's okay. So now we're ready to move on to the next thing. So I want to follow a pattern that I have done in other parts of the application. So let's look at that pattern, and we'll see how it plays out. We can load the application back up and go over here. Well, that looks weird. Looks weird when you only have one grade, but I hadn't really thought about that. So in my current application, there is the ability to, in some of these places, to reorder things already. So you see 3 courses listed, and if you click this little icon, you can see that there's some stuff that needs to be reordered. Now, this is bothering me because this was like, see this CSS thing here? That's strange. Like I've tried to replicate this problem in the past and haven't been able to, and now here we are. I think I'm just going to leave that one alone. In past work on this has actually looked rather nice, and there hasn't been this weird bar thing. I don't know. I wonder if that shows up on Chrome. I will at least check. Is it just Firefox? And this, you may not be able to see this display really clearly once I get Chrome up. So, sorry, I know that's a little off screen. Testing at somewhere, and then my password for this app. Okay, it's also on Chrome, which you can't see it, but there it is. So, all right, I'm going to forget that problem for the moment and see if I can solve that afterwards. The thing I was trying to highlight, though, is right here. So there's this little bit of user interface element that has this up and down pattern. And this is what I want to have on the school year. So again, I won't bring up the model diagram again, but there's a lot, this application kind of functions like a tree. It starts at the top of the school, and then you go down to the school years. Then each school year has grade levels, and each grade level has courses and so on. So each one kind of fans out into something bigger and bigger and bigger, and it all tiers up to the school at the top. I'm glad you appreciate the series. I hope it's useful. So what we want to do is, just like the grade level has this ability to edit attributes here and then edit the courses and adjust their positioning, I want the same functionality to exist on the school year page. So I want to be able to go to the school year, and I want to be able to edit the school year, and here is all of the standard stuff, but then I want to go down and have the grade levels be listed below and have that same kind of ordering element to it. And thankfully, it's pretty distinct from the actual posting that needs to happen. So if you were to look on the cover of this particular page, it's an edit page. It actually might even use the Django class edit view. And so when you do a post, it edits just this one record, this school year. Putting the navigation of grade level orders below here is not part of that posting. It'll be separate because the buttons that will be to the side will be for a couple of extra views that we need to add. So we need to add the actual like UI widget thing here, and then we need to add the controls and all of that. So let's do that much. We only need to add the grade level for the edit page, and so that actual template is actually serving 2 purposes right now. It's got a create mode and an edit mode, so we kind of need to make sure that we edit in the appropriate context. Let's go to the view and find the appropriate page. So there's the detail page. Here, right here, is the school year form. Okay. We can I think we'll do, well, I'm thinking ahead to doing some optimization at the database level. I don't know that it really matters for this view because it's going to be like one additional query. So I might be just overthinking this. So let's not worry about it for now. Let's go straight to the template and work from there. We want to go to the school year form. And here's the form itself. And we don't want any of that stuff. What we want to pay attention to is, look, there's this create attribute that's in here. And this is added to the context. And it's for whether the application is, or the school year is being created or not. So I think what I want to do, I'm trying to figure out where to put this. Notice that the form itself has these classes for width and max on here. So I think I want to put this element inside of the form. Otherwise it could expand out to a really huge distance, which I don't know that I want to do. We'll see. If it's wrong, we'll fix it. So we'll say if create, if not create, we want this to be an edit only kind of thing, because there's no point, there's not going to be any grade levels on a school year that is being created for the first time. And then we want to include a template fragment that it doesn't exist yet. So include, oh man, what should this be called? Let's see what the grade level one has. So schools, grade level form. Same exact pattern. I am really glad when I'm consistent. Although interestingly, I put it outside the form, so maybe I should follow suit. Maybe there's something that past me learned about that means that it should go outside the form. So I'm gonna follow suit here and do that. Whoops. Come on, Matt. Okay, so we want to say, if I follow suit with the naming conventions, we want to say school year grade levels, I guess. School year, oh my word, grade levels. And I want to actually steal from the grade level courses template because it's pretty darn close to what we actually want. So we'll go up to here. And this gets a little complicated because of some shenanigans with many and many fields, which is not going to apply to us in this particular scenario. So let's take that and then say the new file we want is school year grade levels HTML. And we want to paste that. So I think that leaves us with what we're looking for. Now, like I said, yeah, we definitely don't need this width block. Okay. There's some interesting. I'm curious why I did it this way. Because I'm adding like essentially a header row if there's courses, and then I'm looping through the courses. I don't know, this is a weird, something strange about this that I'm not liking. So I think what I could do instead is I could say, first of all, since we don't have the width block, let's outdent this. And then we want to say if school year, I think it's going to be like as put together that way, grade levels, is that a set? Not sure, we'll have to look. Okay, let's go back to that other form for a minute because there's a bunch of stuff that I'm forgetting here. Let's go to the school year form and see what it's named. Yep, so the context name is school year because we use, this is, like I said, it's using the Django class-based view, and it's using the default naming there, which when it takes it from a model, it infers it, but it doesn't put an underscore between things that are otherwise in Pascal case. So every capitalized letter, it doesn't actually transform that to snake case, which is why it's missing an underscore here. So sometimes in my views, I'll actually, most of the time, if I'm writing it myself, I'll have it like this as school year, but not in this context. So where this particular template fragment is going to be used has to follow suit. The other bit that's unknown to me that I need to check on is, did I name the reverse direction so that it could be referenced as grade levels? So that for that, we're going to have to refer to the models file. I did, good. Okay. Because if I hadn't put this related name here, what I would have had to do here would have looked something like, I think the default naming would have been grade level set or something like that. But that's not what it's going to be. So we've got this bit here. I only want to show any of this if there is a grade level. This is what I'm confused, like why did previous version of me separate it that way? Like maybe I just didn't see it in the proper way. So this is going to check the all query. Now, because we're going to rely on the Django ORM to cache this. So at this time, when it's doing the all check, it's bringing all of those instances into the ORM cache. And so I'm not having to like store this in a variable anymore because we're going to reference it in the same way. So instead of for course in courses here, because courses doesn't exist, what I instead want to do is say for for course, that part's going to change, in school year, grade levels, dot all. I'm not putting the parentheses on because this is in the template, and so the template doesn't actually like that function invocation style. But the fact that it's an access like an attribute, it will invoke it like a function because that's what it's going to find. And then we need to actually start filling these bits in here. So we want to say anywhere that has course, we want to change that to grade level. I want to be able to inspect each one, which is why I'm not just like doing a find and replace for all. So there's grade level, grade level. That should have an edit page. Sure, that's fine. It has a name. That's okay. Now these are the things. This won't exist yet. This is the part we're gonna have to fix. Okay, for the moment, I want to take out this. Otherwise, the template's going to fail. Because it's going to try and do that URL template call, and it will do it on that course up thing, but the grade level ID and the course ID are none values. And when the template system is going to try and resolve none.id, and it's also going to return that as a none. And so two none attributes will be passed into the URL call, and it won't be able to build a URL, and it'll throw an exception that shows, hey, I couldn't actually make this URL. So we need to get rid of that for the moment. And then we'll fill in, I guess I should have filled in the rest of the course stuff first, but okay, we'll get rid of this stuff. I'm going to leave the next part because I think that's going to be useful to kind of come back to this page if somebody wants to edit the grade level. So I'm sort of also building the ability to tree up and down into this system of you could start at the school year and you could go to the grade level and then you could go to the course, and each one should like bubble you up to the thing before, I think. But I'm not too worried about that at the moment. Let's get back to the course replacement. Oh, there were no more. Okay, cool. There's capital course, move grade level up, grade level. We'll change that to grade level. So there's our template fragment. I think this is going to work. We'll see. And we'll refresh our page. What happens? Oh, no. Okay. Okay. It's not grade level. That's okay. I get it. Yep. My bad. So the edit page here was wrong. It's in the schools app. So it's the school's namespace. But the grade level edit is the page we want. So we have to call it grade level edit, not just edit. Grade level edit. And it's still passing in the ID, which that part is right. All right, cool. I'm noticing something right off the bat is that I think the other one must have had some padding added. So let's take a look at that other form, which is the grade level form. So, yep. The difference between the form that we were just using and this one has the bottom 8 margin. We go back to the school year form and we go to the classes here. We've got the MB8. And that'll give the bit of breathing room that the other one had. It's going to move that down a little bit. Still bothered by whatever is happening with that. And you know, okay, maybe this is my time to solve this because I couldn't actually even replicate this problem earlier, so now it's happening. Now I can see it, so maybe it's time to take advantage of whatever the heck is going on. We'll see if we can take a little detour and figure this out quickly. Okay, so we've got a div. Cool. Oh, interesting. Notice that it's just on this one side. That's an interesting thing to observe. I think it also appears like, I turn off flux for a minute. I'm having a hard time like seeing it exactly as it's going to display. So it also seems to have like a little bit of gray. This is really puzzling. What is that? All right, let's expand this. Get the anchor tag. This is what's confusing. Like, there's nothing else in here. There's this anchor tag, and then it moves on to the next box. Yeah, it might be coming from, you might be right there, GoFoodie. My sneaking suspicion is that somehow the padding on this stuff over here is influencing the spacing here. Like, look, this thing is a flex box, like built in. What is this? Scroll. Oh. Is it my scroll stuff? I bet that's it. Because it hasn't always looked this way. And I'm wondering if the overflow X scroll is causing that. Yeah, there it is. Okay. So, identified the problem. And so it's like a change in the browser at some point. So I guess what's happening here is that once upon a time, so all right, let's see what it would have looked like in my initial design, and then figure out if we can fix it. So coming back to this page, and for the moment, let's delete this overflow X scroll. Refresh. Now this was my initial version of this, and you can see it's pretty tight, and that was on purpose. I didn't want this thing to be a huge element. So I think at some point the browsers must have said, you know what, we need to, if you're going to have overflow on in the horizontal direction, we always need to show that bar, so that if something does overflow, then the user will be able to see the scroll bar. So, like, I guess maybe I need to explain perhaps what the overflow X scroll does. It's possible, and I think the place that I originally copied this from had tasks, or was built for tasks. And tasks in my system are like what you would do in a course, what a student is expected to do. And I want people to be able to fill out, like, here's all the stuff that can go in there. And that could be like a whole paragraph of text. And what I think happened was there was a scenario where somebody would put in like a URL, and it'd be a long, long URL. And so it actually would fill up everything beyond this space here. So because of that, I needed to add an overflow, because if I didn't, then it would totally break the UI. Like the illusion that this is a table when it's really just a bunch of flex boxes that happen to line up perfectly would be completely shattered. And so that makes sense for tasks. But think about this, like, is anybody going to name a grade level something so long that it would take up all this space? I would postulate that no, that's not actually going to be the case. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this off, and actually, while I'm here, I'm going to take it off on the other one as well, because both of those don't need that overflow element. Course is not going to be named something that big, and a grade level is not going to be named something that big. So I think it's a pretty safe bet that I could do that. Whoops, what did I just do? Redo just that one change. Okay. And be good to go. I still have to keep it for the tasks, and so I need to eventually solve this problem, because there is a place in my app. Let's actually, I wonder if it's still visible. So let's go look at the task list for a course. And I know we're getting a little off track of the original intent, so thank you for bearing with me here, but this is something, yeah, you can see it all over the place. So this overflow stuff happens here, and it looks like just trash, which is really unfortunate. But I think here's why it needs to be there. So let's change this from lesson 6, and we need to have something super long that will definitely trigger the overflow. So you can see that this is critical to be here in this scenario where you have this overflow. And if I maybe we're not on that template, so let's go back to the school year edit page where we're working on, and see what it looks like if I screwed up a grade and changed it to something really gnarly. Text can overflow. Like if we went back to that task page, what you would see is, like, on the tasks that are long, the text will overflow if, and this is the important part, if there is a space. But on some of these long, some of the parents that have worked with me, including my wife, would want to paste in this big long hyperlink that they want to be able to click, and then or reference or something like that. And those long hyperlinks, those are where the problems come up. And I'll show what the problem looks like. So we've turned off overflow here. So let's change this name of 3rd grade to something absurd. Whoops, I'm adding spaces. I'm already failing. Shoot. Okay. So you can see it screws it up here pretty mightily. And so no one would actually name their thing this long. But if we go to the edit page, it also like destroys the table. So text can come out of the next line instead of overflow. I don't know, is there a way to break it on the character? Maybe that's the solution. Like if there's a different kind of overflow, because I want to say there is, like there's different ways. That's the problem. We can't really limit the width of the box. It's a flex box, which is this is the tricky part about this, is that it doesn't really have the same kind of CSS box model stuff as a traditional div and stuff. Flex operates a little weird ways, and you can see it manifest here. Like this is what it's doing if you don't have that overflow. So I think I'm going to punt on this problem. At least I understand what's going on now. It's not really pertinent to this particular part of the discussion. So let's get rid of this, clean this back up, and then we can get back to the actual UI issue at hand. Then I'm going to look into like what the heck, what happened with browsers? Why did they start doing that? And is there a way I can hide that? Because ideally, I still want to support the scroll bar behavior. I like how it is modeled right now. Like it's only something that's going to come up as a penalty if there's something that is out of character. It shows that I've designed for that in the application, but I need to have some kind of way to tell the browser, okay, I really want you to turn off the scroll bar that's kind of just persistent there, even though it's not in use. At least the Apple one looks nice. I think I've noticed this. So my sister-in-law happens to use the application too, and I've seen her set up, and I think she's using Windows, and the Windows scroll bars are just nasty looking. So like, this is a problem I want to fix because it's just a big eyesore in the application, especially for users who have to look at that task list all the time. It's just not great. So actually, in fact, do I have a task? I should make sure that I have a task as a reminder to come back to it. I don't think I do. So let's write one real quickly, and then we'll get back to the work. So, task course task list overflow default scroll bar. And then we can say, even if the task is short enough, the display shows a placeholder for a scroll bar. It looks awful. And then I'm going to call this a bug, because this didn't used to be this way. Okay, appreciate your patience there. I know that wasn't like really the thing we were working on. So where were we? We were looking at this page. We've got the grade level. I think we had pretty much everything that we needed from a UI perspective. So like this is how I want it to look. We've got third, first, second, and test ordering. Actually, this is kind of nice in that this is already screwed up in my test data, and it'd be nice to just hit the up button a couple times on some of these, or the down button on a couple of the others, or whatever, and fix it so that it works. We actually have a good test case that will get us this final state, and this shows up here. So it's great. That's a really good thing. So we need to make these buttons work. Right now they're going nowhere, and they need to go somewhere. So you can see that we're already hooked up, but we need to fill in these fields. And so that's where I want to copy from the actual course views. So there's a course, should be a course up and down. Oh, come on. Move course, move. Yeah. This is the basic idea. And I don't know how much I want to spend on like the test tonight because they're sort of boring. But we want to get these two views created that match up, and we'll do they will work for, I had a brain fart, sorry. They'll work for the grade level, and then we'll check it out, and then that might be a good wrap-up point. Then I can write the test afterwards and deploy it and let my user know. I'm going to actually take these two as they are, and we'll return to the schools views area. I guess there's no really, well, let's think. I should always think. Where do we want these to live? I try to be consistent when I can. It's not always perfect, but so I've got these move up things. Where do they live? They're after the task update. So the corresponding place to put these would be after the grade level update page. I don't know. Does it matter? Sure. Let's put them here. Yeah, right now they don't make any sense because they're things that aren't even in here. They're referencing functions that don't exist. But I just want to get something close. And then we want to take these and put them after here. Now we need to figure out what's the proper name. Nope, we want to put them after the grade level. Dude. Put them after the... Oh, funky. So this already, so the way I've wired this up, okay, this is making more sense now. I already have a course up and down, and then I put them after the grade level already. So maybe I should leave those at the school year, which means that there's already a move course. There is. Oh ho. And it's got some little refactored stuff in here. Okay, okay. So keep those there. Remove that stuff. I think I want to use the ones that are closer. What's here? Because they're all, you can already see that they're like closer in structure. They've got grade level IDs. They're pretty close. And they did some refactoring already. I think these are nicer. And we'll put them after the school year edit view. Because they're kind of associated with edit. I see my logic now. There's functionality that's associated with the edit page, so let's group them together. It must have been the thinking. My editor is complaining at me because we have some duplicated method names, so we're going to call this move grade level. And this will be move grade level down. And this is move grade level up. Okay. So what are we going to need here? When we're actually doing the move, wondering why I did all this like checking and stuff in this function. That doesn't really matter. I need the user because I need to do an access control check. So that still remains the same. I need the grade level ID. That also is something that I need. I don't need a course ID. Those are not going to factor in. And I need the next URL. So, okay. I've got that, getting it from the request there. So it's separating, this function is separating this from HTTP handling to a degree. It's returning an HTTP response redirect. So it's not the cleanest function of all. This I added some method. This one's more complicated because I added a method and then did a get adder on it. So we don't actually have that. So we're actually, the flow difference here is that we're going to get the grade level. And actually, the as is probably correct. And we're going to call, if you recall, we looked at the documentation earlier. And the documentation has directions. So we can say up and down, basically. Where'd they go? There's bottom, top, up and down. So we're going to use those attributes, and we're going to do the same get adder stuff, the same get direction, but we don't need to pass in a course because that's not going to be from the thing above. So now we need to change the directions that are on here to match the API from Django ordered model. We also need to be able to return to the right place, and we want to go to the school year edit page. So this is the schools edit page, and we're going to need the grade level school year ID. I'm doing it this way very specifically. Rather than doing school year.id, that'll do an extra query. But since the grade level has a foreign key to the school year, if you want to access that foreign key directly as a number, you can do it by using this underscore ID, and that's what's really stored in the model instance as kind of like this semi-hidden attribute. That's what's going on there. Okay. So let's correct the documentation string here. Move the grade level ordering in the specified direction. We're still pulling from the grade level. It's still going to be the grade level ID, and it still does this access check, looking at that the user owns the school, which owns the school year. That's the check that is important. So that's an important thing to keep there. And then if there's no next URL, then we'll fill one in, and we'll do a redirect to that place. Okay, and then we need to come down to the move grade level down method. We don't need the course ID. And we say move grade level down in ordering. And then this is going to be, instead of move course, we want move grade level. We'll delete the course ID, and we'll change this to down. And that becomes a one-liner, which is pretty nice. All right, continuing on, we've got the equivalent move grade level up in the ordering. This is adding the symmetry. We're going to change this to up. And then this becomes grade level. There we go. Okay. Grade levels, HashID. Okay. Sorry, just looking at how I wanted to do this. So this is grade levels, HashID down, views, move grade level down, and this becomes grade level down. Okay, that's one. And then the corresponding move grade levels, HashID up, move grade level up, and grade level up. So now we have our URLs, we have our views. I think the final step here to make this work is to go into the template and then actually wire that up. Go return back to this template. Where we had the hash mark, we can replace it with the call to URL. We say schools grade. Which direction is this? Down or up? Grade level up. Grade level up. And then we say grade level ID. We'll just use PK so it matches up. No, yeah, PK. Okay, this is the corresponding direction. We've got URL, schools, grade level down. We need a parameter, right? Yep. That would help. Can't just give it nothing. All right, we left the server running that whole time. So we should be able to come back to this page, refresh it. It actually picks up the URLs. Hopefully we did the template stuff right. And now if I hover on this, well, it doesn't actually show up as a URL in the corner. This is not a link. This is a button that does a post. So nothing to see there. But if I click some of these things, so let's do a couple here. So we're gonna move this one down, refreshes and moves that down, and then we'll move second grade up. Ooh. Whoops. Okay. This is why you test, y'all. I would have picked this up on unit tests, but I haven't written them yet. Where's that complaining? Move grade level up. Missing one position. Okay. Dang it. Ah. Didn't actually clean up that part. So this is the opposite direction. Let's go back. Refresh this page. Just make sure it's all hunky-dory. And we'll go up this time. Hey, look at that. All right. If we return to the school year, now we see first, second, third test ordering. Awesome. There is a problem with this flow that I have not led onto, but I'm not going to solve it tonight. The problem is this page. This page doesn't really care about grade levels right now. It pays attention to the student. And what's going to have to change is presumably the parent, and I need to go talk to my wife about this actually, probably. The parent would probably like their student ordering here to match the grade level that's listed in the school year. So if these are the names of my children, if Mark is enrolled in 3rd grade here, he's no longer in 3rd grade, but if I listed 3rd grade, I happen to in this case, 3rd grade was later, so it would come later. You can see like this doesn't match up because I only have 2 students and my fictitious school year has 4. So like when I am retrieving the schedules of what to display for the week, it's going to have to factor in the order of the grade levels. And that part's not done. So I should probably write that down as something to do next. And then check and make sure that that's actually what my spouse wants. Because it would be kind of weird to me if like you order the grade level and then your view of the week doesn't actually match up with the grade level. It matches up with your kids ordering like by their name or who was added first. That's all kind of strange to me. So make the weekly view and the daily view match grade level ordering. So that's to come. All right. But for this particular task, aside from tests, and let me just enumerate the tests that I will add. There are going to be copies of the existing course tests, basically. I need to check, is the user authenticated? Is the user able to update this particular school year? And then does the grade level actually get moved up and down? Those are the tests. So it's probably like 5 or 6 tests. They're really not much to see. If you want to poke around on this repository, you're more than welcome to. It is, as you can see, public. So let me drop a link in the chat. If you want to go poke at it, you can look for equivalent kind of tests on the for the move course up and down that we saw. Those things, there's tests that I'm going to essentially copy those things almost exactly the same kind of setup, just a little bit of different data, call some different URLs, but it'll be the same kind of assertions to make sure that the behavior matches up. So I think that's where I want to end it for this evening. This shows how, what do we do today? Like we added the order to the model, and we made sure that we didn't mess with the data. I was concerned about like what would that be, but we went through that migration process of actually setting the parameters so that make it safe. That was of utmost importance. Anytime you are modifying your production database, you want to make sure your changes are safe. And then we deployed that, and then we started working on the UI changes, knowing that the data change is out there and ready to go. And so I think there's a little bit more to change here in order to actually expose the feature to my users before I go off and tell my customer, hey, this feature is available, because I don't want to rush it and have a half-baked answer and then disappoint her when it doesn't actually do as she might expect it to. So I probably need to check some other URLs in places where students show up and their order shows up, and what's it going to mean from a reporting point of view on some of these places where now I've got this new grade level ordering that I wasn't previously using. So that's going to wrap it up. I take this content and I post it to YouTube. So if you want to go back and check stuff, you're more than welcome to do so. It's you can search for Matt Lehman on YouTube and you'll find this this stream as a playlist. If you can give me a follow here on Twitch, that'd be awesome. If you go watch a video over there and get something useful out of it, please give it a like or a comment. I'm happy to engage with you there and answer your questions as you might have them as you discover stuff in there. Otherwise, that's going to do it for this stream. Thank you all for joining in. Take care and have a great evening.